Alright, so Lost Caverns of Ixalan is coming out on the 17th. So I decided I'd rank all of the commanders from the set. It's actually from three sets. It's from the Lost Caverns, the Commander set, and also there's the Jurassic Park set. So we'll go through the commander cards first. And the way I'm ranking them is building paper, which is I am going to buy this card on release and build a deck immediately. And then there's brewing, which is I'm going to brew with it, and if I find a brew that I like, I might buy it. So maybe one or two of the commanders in brewing I might actually build in paper. And then might brew later is once the hype for the set has died down a bit, I might look into them and brew a deck with them. And if I really like it, I'll build it in paper. And then convince me is I have no intention of brewing it, but if something comes up where there's some interesting interaction I didn't know about, I might brew it. Or if somebody tells me, hey, this card's actually like really good or really fun with some combination of other cards, I might brew it. And then never brewing is this card is like trash, in my opinion. At least it's like a commander, and I never, I never want to see it. All right, so let's get started. So first up, we have Admiral Brass. So these are impossible to see, which is why I have them all here. So Admiral Brass Unsinkable. Read the card. So legendary creature human pirate for 2 blue, black, red. When Admiral Brass Unsinkable enters the battlefield, mill 4 cards. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may return target pirate creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. It has base power and toughness 4/4. It gains haste until end of turn. If a creature with a finality counter on it would die, exile it instead. So, this commander is pretty good. It's kind of the first one I've actually wanted to like brew pirates with because I love just dumping stuff in the graveyard, and this is like the tribal commander to do that with. There might be other tribal commanders where you dump stuff and reanimate it, but this is like this one like speaks to me. And it's I think it's a lot less powerful than the Scarab God because you can't reanimate from your opponent's graveyards. And while this is pretty interesting though, because you get value immediately when you play this right. So that's something you always want to look out for with commanders is it gaining you value immediately, and this one is gaining you value pretty much immediately if you're building a power deck right. So for this one, I might wait for the hype to die down a little bit. So I do want to brew with this though at some point though. So it is going in might brew later, but it is very I think it's very aggressively costed for what it does. Next up is Cavalino, First of the Blessed. So legendary creature, vampire cleric. One, a white and a black. Whenever you attack, target attacking vampire that isn't a demon becomes a demon in addition to its other types. Gains when this creature dies. Draw a card and create a tapped 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. So this card, I'm not planning on brewing with it, but it does have some interesting characteristics where the way it's worded, it says it gains when this creature dies, draw a card, and create a tapped 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. It doesn't say until end of turn. So unless they change the wording on that through an errata, that just means it stays, like you keep that forever. So like if the thing dies later on, you'll still draw the card and create the token, right? And you can get immediate value with this when your commander comes into play, because you can have some other vampire on the battlefield, like Bloodghast or whatever, and that's one you don't really care if it dies or not. So you can like create a nice little engine. The sad thing is you only get one of these triggers a turn unless you're copying it somehow. So interesting, just not something I'm looking for. Next up, we have Hackball of the Surging Soul. So legendary scout, legendary creature, Merfolk Scout. 2, a green and a blue. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each Merfolk creature you control explores. So reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand. If it's a land, otherwise put a +1/+1 counter on the exploring creature, then put the card back or put it into your graveyard. And whenever Hackball of the Surging Soul attacks, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you don't, draw a card. So this one's also not something I'm really interested in brewing right now, but maybe brewing later. Just because you get to explore for each merfolk. So you could have like 10 merfolk out and get like 10 explore triggers, and that's like kind of crazy. So you're either filling up your graveyard or you're just getting a lot of lands into your hand, which can be good with certain cards that care about how many cards you have in your hand. So just having a big hand size can be interesting. And then it also just does Simic stuff where you ramp and draw cards. So just kind of a generic good stuff commander, but the first half with combat's kind of intriguing. So maybe that one I'll go into brew later. All right. Next up, Panasa Sun Favored. So 2, a red, a green, and a white. Legendary creature dinosaur. Whenever Panasa Sun Favored, another dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may discover X, where X is that creature's toughness. Do this only once each turn. So discover is exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with that mana value or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost or put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So what makes this interesting is discover lets you put it into your hand. So if it's a board wipe, it's not like you have to cast it. You can put it into your hand and save it for later, which is really awesome. And this is another one like Brass, where you don't get the selection from your graveyard. It's because you don't really know what you're going to get from the top. But if you're just jamming a bunch of dinos, this is pretty good, right? Because you're going to get a dino. And unlike Gishath, this is like a more low-cost dino, so you can get it out right away. And I would put this for me I'm probably not gonna play with this unless there's like some like janky combo somebody points out to me. But it is just like a good stuff commander. It does something right away. Uh, it's really good if it sticks around. So yeah. Uh, if you can tell me about some crazy combo with it, please let me know. All right. Next up, Carmen Cruel Sky Marcher. So this is 3, a white and a black. It's a legendary creature vampire soldier. With flying, whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Carmen Cruel Sky Marcher and you gain 1 life. Whenever Carmen attacks, return up to 1 target permanent card, mana value less than or equal to Carmen's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. This one I'm actually kind of intrigued with because there's a lot of sacrificing going on. So this thing's going to get big. And white and black is really the color of life gain aristocrat shenanigans. So that life gain trigger is like actually a huge deal. And then the attack trigger is also a big deal. Being a permanent card means you can get back like fetches, or if somebody destroys your Cabal coffers, you can get that back too. Or you can just get back your aristocrats pieces or whatever. And then later on in the game, you can, if you dump something in the graveyard, you can get that back and get a huge mana discount. So probably the one thing holding it back is the mana cost. 5 mana is like a big investment, and it doesn't do anything when it comes down unless you can give it haste somehow. In which case you can get back like an engine piece or something. So yes, I am interested in brewing this. All right. Next up, we've got Andre the Renegade. So 1, a blue, a black, and a red. A legendary creature vampire pirate. Each creature you control but don't own gets +2/+2, has menace and death touch, and is a pirate in addition to its other types. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, create 2 tap treasure tokens. So this is just like the threatened commander. You like take other people's things and hit them with them. So obviously this is better the more people at the table there are, because then you can do these massive insurrections and things like that. And blue has some cheeky control cards, like you have Reigns of Power, which like swaps all of the creatures, your creatures with somebody else's, which is like pretty good. And you also get pirate synergies, which is relevant if you are running things that care about pirates in your Andre's deck. So this is one I'm looking out for, but maybe I'll wait for the hype to die down before I brew with it. It's also aggressively costed at 4. The biggest downside to this is it doesn't do anything when it comes into play. Well, actually, it can if you already have threatened or taken control of some creatures. So you do have to have like some setup. And then there's also the treasure side of this. So it has kind of a lot of versatility as a commander, which I like. So going to put this in Might Brew later. All right. Next up, the Weta Trainer Prodigy. So a red, a green, and a white for a legendary creature human warrior. That's pretty aggressively costed there. Has haste, 2 and a green, tap it. Target creature you control fights another target creature. Its ability costs 2 less to activate. If it targets 2 creatures you control, creature you control being dealt damage causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. That ability triggers an additional time. So I think the damage mechanic on dinosaurs is called Enrage. There's like some really good Enrage triggers you can get. Like there's some that just like draw you cards. There's some that let you fight like anything. So yeah, this is like really good. You want like your dinos to like fight each other. Like you give everything indestructible and then do some fighting. And this is really good. The fact that it has haste is amazing because it means you can activate this right when it hits the battlefield. So that would be like if you're doing it with your own stuff, that's on turn 4, right? And you also have this threat. Once you have 6 mana, you have this threat of being able to have this basically this removal in the command zone. So people have to think about it before they play their Cryptghast or whatever, because it will probably just die. So pretty interesting. And the body is really important because you can have her fight your creatures and have both the creatures survive because she only deals 1 damage. She's another one I might brew later. Again, once the hype has died down. All right. Next up. Zolia Toak, the Smiling Flood. I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyways, it's 4, a green, and a blue for a legendary creature, Salamander Serpent. Whenever Zolia Toak, the Smiling Flood, enters the battlefield or attacks, put a flood counter on target land. That land is an island in addition to its other types for as long as it has a flood counter on it. You can have your end step untap each permanent you control with a flood counter on it. Okay. So this is like really good if you build around it because there are many lands that enter with counters on them. So you can use it as like a weird sort of wilderness reclamation where you untap all your lands on your end step. And the really cool thing about this is if you have excess mana, right? The trigger will go on the stack. So you tap all your lands for, I don't know, like 3 mana or whatever you have left over. The trigger goes on the stack. You untap all your lands. Then you tap them all again for another like 9 mana or whatever. So then you have 12 floating. And then that's really good with greens X spells and blues X spells. So if you have instant speed X spells where you draw cards or things like that, it becomes really good because you're going to draw a ton of cards. The biggest drawback to this commander is if your opponents deal with it, it's going to be a problem. So you do want to have a protection up for this thing when you put it out. Otherwise, it's just going to die. Or you want to make sure your opponents are tapped out or something. But this is like amazing. If you get even one activation out of this, it's like pretty good because then it's basically like free the turn it comes into play, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of like hype around this. So maybe I'm going to hold off on building this until kind of things shake out. But again, I'm pretty excited for this one. I'm just like, I already have a bunch of Simic commanders, so I want to kind of hold off a little bit on it. So, might brew later. Alright. Oh yeah, and then there's like the storage lands with like Hickory Woodlot and stuff, which is like pretty funny. Next up, Teton Gnome Champion. So a blue, a red, and a white for a legendary artifact creature Gnome. Whenever Teton or another double-faced artifact enters the battlefield under your control, mill 3 cards. You may put an artifact card from among them into your hand. Then craft with 6 artifacts and pay 4. So 4, exile this artifact. Exile the 6 from among other permanents you control and or cards from your graveyard. Return this card transformed under its owner's control. And then the flip side is the Golden Gear Colossus. So legendary artifact creature Gnome. Vigilance Trample. Whenever the Golden Gear Colossus enters the battlefield or attacks, transform up to 1 other target double-faced artifact you control. Create 2 1/1 colorless Gnome artifact creature tokens. So this card's really good. If we just take a look at some of these things it can flip. So it can flip your Primal Amulet. It can flip Dowsing Dagger. It can flip Thaumatic Compass. It can flip Golden Guardian. It can flip all the Transformers because they're all artifacts. It can flip Azor's Gateway. You don't have to have 5 or more cards exiled. You can just flip it right away, which is absolutely absurd. Here's a few more ones of note. Foreboding Statue's kind of okay. What you're really looking out for is stuff that's 2 mana or less. So Mystic Skull is kind of like a ghetto Chromatic Lantern. Anyways, there's tons of good stuff. Brass's Tunnel Grinder is very good because it lets you like dump a bunch of artifacts to like fuel the craft. Atlante is very good because again you can dump a card with it and then you can get a ton of mana with it. So taking a look at all these, you're definitely going to have some juicy targets for the ability. Kind of the real question is the craft with 6 artifacts is like a very hefty cost. And what I'm thinking about is how consistent is it to flip this the turn after you play it? And I think it's actually going to be fairly consistent. So if you think about how you play this thing on maybe like turn 3, it depends how you curve out. Well, let's say you play this on turn 3. And then next turn you craft. So you're already dumping 3 cards in the graveyard. Hopefully they're all artifacts. And then maybe you have an artifact land and maybe you played some cheap artifacts on your first 2 turns. So you can definitely achieve this on turn 4, but it's going to be difficult. You'll have to, it's like very all in, because then you're banking on whatever card you transformed with this thing. So there are like some good ones, like Azor's Gateway. If you transform Azor's Gateway, it's like nuts because then you have like 30 mana or whatever, right? So there's going to be like the dream scenario where you do that, and then there's going to be other scenarios where maybe you do that, but then your Azur's Gateway gets like destroyed or whatever, and then you're going to be like really sad because you also had to craft with 6 artifacts and get rid of them to do it. So, cool build around Commander. I'll definitely be brewing with this one. Next up, got Xavier Sal, Infested Captain. This is another one I'm going to be brewing with. It's a black, a green, and a blue legendary creature, human fungus pirate. So tap, remove a counter from another permanent you control. Populate, activate only as a sorcery. And then populate is create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. And then its other ability is tap, sacrifice another creature. Proliferate, activate only as a sorcery. And that's choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already there. So this is probably my one of my favorite commanders of the set. I don't know if I'll be buying him right away, but I'll definitely be brewing with him, and I'll probably be buying him later. So the thing about this commander is it works very well with sagas, and there's some very good sagas. So if we take a look, so let's say we curve out with him. Turn 3 we play him. Turn 4 we play like Phyrexian Scriptures. Then we sack a creature to proliferate. We can destroy all. We can just like Wrath immediately with Phyrexian Scriptures. Or maybe we don't. Maybe we wait a turn and we remove the counter. So instead, that way, so then we play Phyrexian Scriptures turn 4. Turn 5, it wraths everything. We remove the counter, so it goes back to playing the +1/+1 counter, which we put on our commander. And then next turn, it'll go to 2 counters again. So it just wraths every turn, which is like amazing. And then Cure Best to See God is another one. It's pretty expensive, but getting 8/8s every turn is pretty good. And then being able to populate the Krakens is also kind of amazing. So there's some really good stuff in here. It works with the flip Praetors too. So you can get your modes again there. So just a lot of kind of versatility here in terms of sagas. And then you can run a bunch of the other saga commanders. Like you can run Chisei in the 99. You can run the Glissa that removes counters in the 99 as well. So good stuff there. And we will be putting Xavier at brewing because it's pretty good. All right, next up, Francisco Fowl Marauder. So legendary creature, bird pirate. It's 1 and a black. It's flying. Can't block. Whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to a player, Francisco explores, and then partner. So this is kind of like it rounds out the kind of Grixis identity of pirates for partners, because we have like breaches, and then we have the blue siren guy, and this guy Francisco can partner with either of them. So this is one I'm not too interested in, just because I think some of the other pirate options are more intriguing to me, but it does do some interesting stuff. So I will probably not be brewing with that unless somebody tells me there's something cool you can do with it that I didn't know about. All right, moving on. So Oer Attack. Now we're moving into the set proper. Before, all of those were cards from the commander product, and a couple were kind of like booster cards. And those two were our Fungus Pirate here and our Gnome Transform here. So we'll have kind of a segue into our new card. So here we are, Oer Attack, Deepest Foundation. So we have a new cycle of gods. This is a white one for 4 and a white. If a legendary creature god has vigilance, if one or more creature tokens would be created under control 3 times that many of those tokens are created instead. When it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. So we transform it, becomes Temple of Civilization. So tap to add a white, or pay 2 and a white to tap to transform it. And you can only activate if you attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn, and only as a sorcery. So I've played a fair amount of mono white in Commander, and as a Commander, this thing is like really bad. So that's just my opinion, though, right? So mono white, you already have some ways to generate more tokens, and this is like, oh man, this thing is a really expensive engine piece, right? You have to invest a lot of mana into this, and if the board gets wiped, like, how are you transforming this? Like, you don't have any creatures anymore. So, oh man, I don't know, this thing is just like so mediocre as like a commander. It's just like so bad because it also just doesn't do anything when it enters. Man, it's so bad. All right. I think we know where this is going. I'm not going to be brewing with this thing. No way. I will be having a 99 video coming out where I will probably give this a much better rating, but for now it's our first Never Brewing. So get out of here. All right. Next card. Akle Pacle, First Among Equals. Legendary creature human advisor. You can pay 2 and a blue for it. At the beginning of each player's end step, if an artifact entered the battlefield under your control this turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So this is very cheap at 3. But I see this, again, as more of a 99 piece. So being able to trigger it every turn is kind of like the dream. But a lot of the cards that would do that are in other colors, like Smothering Tithe, for example, is white. And this is mono blue. So maybe there's like some flash shenanigans you can do with it. But at that point, you're working pretty hard. Or maybe you can like flicker artifacts or something. But then again, you're like working pretty hard for this kind of engine effect where you don't really want to work that hard. You just want to get it every turn without having to think about it. So I am not going to be playing them as a commander. So get out of here. Get into Never Brewing. Let's see. I think you are there. All right. Ah, dang, we don't have any building in paper. Don't worry. I have some coming up. All right. Next one. Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel. So 1 and a blue legendary creature, Siren Pirate, flash flying. Whenever Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel deals combat damage to a player, put a chorus counter on it, draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 4 more chorus counters on Malcolm, you may cast a discarded card without paying its mana cost. So 2/1. This card is man, if there weren't so many like blue free spell commanders, I'd be way more interested in this, but there's just like so many. Again, this feels like kind of a 90, like more of like a 99 card in a proliferate deck. But it's also a good commander. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you give this thing double strike and you're casting 2 free cards off of this, it's like kind of nuts, right? And there's no like typing, so this is a pretty open-ended commander. And again, the flash is huge because you can flash this in and basically it has kind of like pseudo haste. I don't know. This is like a convince me card. Like if there's like some like cool like enchantment thing you can do with this, like where you like bust out like omniscience or something, like there's something cool you can do with this. Maybe it might be in maybe brewing. Yeah, it's going to maybe brewing. This card's like too cool. Like it's not just like another like play free instance. This is like you can like play free anything, so makes it a lot more interesting. All right, it's in my brew later. All right, next card. So Oer Pack Deepest Epoch. So 2 blue, legendary creature god, flying. Recast an instant spell from your hand, it gains rebound. Exile it as it resolves at the beginning of your next upkeep. You may cast it from exile without paying its mana cost. When Oer Pack dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control with 3 time counters on it. So at least this isn't just like another extra turn commander. Let's also talk about the backside too, though. Also, it's a 4/3. Temple of Cyclical Time. It's a land. You can tap to add a blue, remove a time counter from Temple of Cyclical Time, and then 2 and a blue. Tap, transform Temple of Cyclical Time. Activate only if it has no time counters on it, and only as a sorcery. So this kind of suffers from the same problem as the white one in the cycle did, in that it doesn't really do anything when it comes down. You have to have like more than 4 mana for it to like actually do something. On the other hand, what it does is free, right? So you just get that for free. Whereas with the white one, man, you get it for free on the white one too, but man, copying instant spells is just so much better. Especially any kind of draw spell. You're just doubling your draw. Again, I'm not too excited to brew with this, but probably there's other people who are really excited to play with this card. So this kind of goes in the convince me pile of cards, where there's probably some like really cool things you can do with it. I just am not too. I'm just kind of like zoned out of blue commanders that like cheat instants and sorceries. All right. So convince me. All right. Next up, Akle the Deepest Betrayal. The black one in the God Cycle. So 3 black, legendary creature, Bat God. Flying lifelink. Whenever Akle attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. When Akle dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. It's a 4/4. Backside is Temple of the Dead, a land. So tap to add a black, or 2 and a black, tap, transform Temple of the Dead, activate only if a player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, and only as a sorcery. So this is one I'm playing on brewing with. I think it kind of has a lot of characteristics of things I like to see in a commander. One thing, it has evasion, and it can block in the air with flying, which is really important. And lifelink. So those two are really good together because you can make sure you hit it and get some life back. And then the discard ability on attack is pretty good. It's not something that it's going to get removed over, right? It's not like egregiously powerful. And then we have the mode with discarding a land card. You make more blockers in the air, which is really good. And them being 1/1s is amazing because you can clamp them with Skull Clamp. And it's probably one of the easier ones to transform back into its front half, because if you're building around it, you're making people discard cards, and so somebody's going to have 1 or fewer cards, and it might be you if you go really hard into self-discard as well. So yeah, just like not probably not going to be the focus of the table, and it's going to stick around, and it's easy to get back to your front half, and it's going to get you life. So it just has a lot of kind of minor things going for it that like combine into an overall really cohesive package. So I'll definitely be brewing with this. Also, I think it's like the first like bat tribal commander or whatever, so you can like have your like janky bat tribe if you want. Just a fun card. All right, that is going in brewing. Next up, Breach's Eager Pillager. So for 2 and a red, you get a legendary creature, Goblin Pirate. First strike, whenever a pirate you control attacks, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Create a treasure token. Target creature can't block this turn. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. So those 3 modes. And it's a 3/3. Pros for this card is you can have some pirates in play and start getting some value off of this right away. Again, for me, this is more like an engine piece in the 99. It would be a fine commander, though. It just does not interest me because it's mono red, and pirates have a lot of cards in other colors that you want to be playing. So that is going into the that convinced me you're never brewing. Probably never brewing. All right, next up, got Ancestral of the Sun. So for 1 and a red, get a legendary creature, Human Knight. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until your next end step. So this is kind of interesting if you play it as like a mono red wheel commander. So you discard like your hand, then you draw a bunch of cards, and then you exile the top. So maybe it's actually not that good as a wheel commander because you're only like gaining an extra card off each wheel. So again, this might be more of an engine piece in a discard deck. Or cast from exile deck. So again, Prosper got a ton of pieces this set. Yeah, I'm not too interested in building this, but I don't know. If somebody told me there was something weird you could do with this they don't know about, then sure. And it's very aggressively costed. If it dies, you can get this back out right away. So yeah, it goes in the convince me pile. All right, next up. Oer Axel, Deepest Might. It's the red god in the cycle. So for 2 red, you get legendary creature god. It has trample. For red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than Oer Axel's power to an opponent. That source deals damage equal to Oer Axel's power instead. Oer Axel dies, returns to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. It's a 4/4 by the way. And backside is Temple of Power. Land, tap to add a red, 2 and a red, transform Temple of Power. Activate only if red sources you controlled dealt 4 more combat damage this turn and only as a sorcery. So for this commander, I've actually seen this thing in play. I was playing with somebody who wanted to test out some of the new commanders, and this thing it might be one of the better. It might be the best like red deal damage commander for a few reasons. Like it has a lot of versatility where you can go for commander damage to kill somebody by like doubling its power, giving it double strike. So you deal with one person using commander damage, and then the other 2 people you just sort of kill off through your damage effects, right? And there's like a lot of like red. There's a lot of cheap red pingers. So this is actually pretty easy to do. I don't really build red burn commanders, but I don't know. This one's really fun. And then there's like you could maybe if you like copy your burn spells, then that's also really interesting. So there's like a few ways you can go with this. So it's going in Might Brewing. I don't usually play red burn commanders, but it has some kind of brewability to it. It's not as straightforward as some of the other ones, and it also has a lot of survivability too on the backside. It's going to be really hard to kill this for good. All right, next up, Galta SED Tarant. This is just a big beater with some upside. 5, a green, so 8, legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur, trample. Galta SED Tarant enters the battlefield. Put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So this one's I don't know about this. This is like the timmiest card ever. So you have to reach 8 mana, which in green is not too bad, but oh man. Green draws a lot of cards and ramps hard, so you'll definitely be able to do this, but oh man, people are gonna see this coming from a mile away though, right? Like they're gonna see this in your command zone and oh man, they're not gonna want to let you do this, or they might be holding like a board wipe for you. Though, again, I saw somebody like play this in a game because they wanted to see like test it out, and it was like really scary because it came down once at kind of the end of the game where we'd spent all our removal, and so like nobody could do anything, right? And they just like jammed three like huge creatures. I think one of them was Crater Hoof, so I, it was like really bad at that point. So I think that's kind of the idea with this commander is you kind of play the long game where you wait until people are kind of running low on resources or running low on board wipes, and you try and like jam this thing and like kill everyone. So it's like a weird. It's like having a Crater Hoof in the command zone. So, oh, man, when I pitch it like that, it's like I actually kind of want to brew with this. So it's going in my brewing. I was just gonna like throw it in like the I'm never gonna touch this pile, but it's like actually like there's like you just like slam this thing down and like somebody dies. I don't know. It's like cool. Uh, yeah, might brew later. All right. We've got Watley Po of Unity, 2 green, legendary creature, human warrior bard. When Watley Po of Unity enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Then 3 for a hybrid red white, exile Watley, then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery. She's a 2/3. Then the backside is Roar of the Fifth People. Uh, it's a saga. So first counter is you create 2/3/3 green dinosaur creature tokens. Second counter, Roar of the Fifth People gains. Creatures you control have tap, add red, green, or white. Then third counter is search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Then fourth counter, dinosaurs you control gain double strike and trample until end of turn. So this is like kind of like A, B, C, D for like death because everybody's gonna die. Yeah, this is just like a very synergistic card. You make your dinosaur tokens. They tap for mana. Then you search your library for the dinosaur card. That lets you tap all your tokens, all your mana to pay for that dinosaur card. And then you give once it's the next turn and it's not summoning sick, you give it double strike and trample and like everybody's dead. Like I mean that's like the dream, but it's gonna take 4 turns for that to happen. The upside of this card is the front half is like nobody's gonna care. Nobody's like going to be like trying to kill your commander or whatever. Again, it's another dinosaur commander that doesn't cost 8 or 9 mana, which is pretty good. Thinking if you can immediately exile it on the next turn. So if you play this turn 3, you need some way to accelerate. There's probably you could play like some red mana acceleration. Yeah, you could like Seething Song this on turn 4. Or if it's really late in the game, maybe you cast this and then immediately exile it. So yeah, it's got some versatility. It's just kind of like a good stuff commander. You just jam a bunch of dinos and like see what happens. Yeah, this is like man, I don't know. This is like maybe there's like some proliferate shenanigans you can pull with it too on like the back half. The back half is just so slow though. All right, this is like a convince me one. I definitely see like there's like a lot of potential here. I'm not like saying this is like bad or anything. Other people, this is like building paper, but for me, this is like convince me. I'm just not too interested. Uh, Next up, Oer Cassum, Deepest Growth. So for 3 and a green, legendary creature god. It's the last in this cycle, I believe. Is Trample. Whenever Oer Cassum deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You may put a creature card and or a land card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. When an Oer Cassum dies, return to the battlefield, tapped and transformed under its owner's control. It's a 6/5, so it comes back as Temple of Cultivation. It's a land, taps for green. 2 green, transform Temple of Cultivation. Activate only if you control 10 or more permanents and only as a sorcery. So this is another commander where you really want haste on this thing. Like, because otherwise you play this and people are going to be terrified of it, and maybe that's what triggers like a board wipe, or somebody just like uses a kill spell to kill it. So Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves. You want them both in your deck. Maybe like Concordant Crossroads or something. I don't know. Anyway, just like give this thing haste. Also giving it double strike is going to be pretty good. So any of the double strike equipment, so you can double your triggers. And then it likes stuff that has ETB triggers just because of how it works. So you like get the value immediately. Because if you like, you can also just go for like big haymakers, right? But they won't be able to attack because you've already had your combat that turn. And like the Bat God and the Red God are both. I think they're going to be pretty easy to transform back from their backside. This one might be easy to transform back. Especially if you're just like ramping a ton in green, you'll have those 10 permanents just from your lands. So interesting is just kind of another good mono green commander. Having that survivability though is kind of a big deal. So I'm not too interested in brewing with it, but it's not like egregiously bad to me. So it's like, yeah, it's like in the convince me pile. All right. Next up, we have Abuelo Ancestral Echo. So 1, a white and a blue legendary creature spirit. So it's Flying Ward 2. Activated ability is 1, a white and a blue. Exile another target creature or artifact you control. Return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So this might be a good, like, we have Brago at home commander, right? So if you don't want like something that's as oppressive as Brago, this is like another good flicker commander. And the thing I like about it, compared to Brago, if we look up Brago, you only get, well, with Double Strike, you get 2 triggers. But with this thing, you can potentially get more triggers on one thing over like many turn cycles, right? So I'll kind of talk about why you would want to do that. So there is another card here. One of my favorite cards ever is Coveted Jewel. So imagine you like are flickering like a coveted jewel like every turn, and Then you can use the mana from Coveted Jewel to help pay for Abuelo's ability, and you just like draw 12 cards every turn cycle off Coveted Jewel. There's like other good cards, other good artifacts to flicker with this, like I think the Might Stone and Weak Stone are like a good card to flicker with that, because then you are, I think you're drawing like 2 cards off of those, and it also taps for 2 colorless. Or you can like choose the mode where you give something -5/-5. So the Might Stone and Weak Stone, yeah. So that has another really good ETB trigger. There's some other good ones, like, let's see if it's here. Yeah, Portal to Phyrexia is also really good. So ETBs, each opponent sacks 3 creatures. So there's definitely some fun things you can do with this, like where you just like are flickering on other people's turns. So there is definitely some room for experimentation there, which is why I will be brewing with it. All right. Next card. Akawali, the Seething Tower. 1 a black and a green. Legendary creature fungus. Descend 4. As long as there are 4 more permanent cards in your graveyard. Akawali, the Seething Tower, gets +2/+2 and has trample. Descend 8. As long as there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, Akawali gets an additional +2/+2 and can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. This card is like Draft Chaff. I'm not playing this thing. There's better legendary fungi. Maybe this goes in like the 99 of a fungi deck, but even then, it's like debatable. This card just like kind of sucks. Like, you just don't want vanilla beaters and as your commander. I don't know. Get out of here. Get into the never brewing pile. All right. Next up, Malia Benavides Guari. I don't know. It's a white and a black legendary creature vampire scout. Ward, pay 3 life whenever you gain life. Malia Benavides Aguirre explores, then destroy all other creatures if its power is exactly 20. So this commander intrigues me because you can like really get people with this thing with hatred, right? Where you give it the, like, maybe you respond to your explore trigger with hatred, and then like it becomes a like, oh crap situation where if you don't like deal with this and somebody has like even just like 1 or like, maybe you hit somebody with this for like 2 and they just have 2 commander damage, you just hatred out of nowhere, wipe the board and kill somebody. So uh that's what like intrigues me about this card. And then the board pay 3 life is like whatever. It will probably actually stop somebody from like kill spelling your commander at some point when they're like really low on life, but it's probably for the most part it's not going to be relevant, but it's like a nice little bonus. Yeah, just kind of for the hatred, just for the hatred meme, I kind of like this commander. Plus it's 2 mana, so uh once the hype dies down a bit, I might brew with her. She seems she seems fun. All right. Next up. All right. Oh boy, this one. Ah, the ancient one. a blue and a black. Legendary creature, Spirit God. Descend 8. The Ancient One can't attack or block unless there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. For 2 blue black, draw a card, then discard a card. When you discard a card this way, target player mills cards equal to its mana value, and it is an 8/8. So for 2 mana, you get an 8/8. So this thing is like just like I'm buying this on release because there's like some really funny graveyard things you can do with this where you pitch these. I think I've got a list here. You pitch these like huge cards to your graveyard, like Draco, Shadow of Mortality, Emrakul, Enter the Infinite, right? Like, if that betrays, there's like tons of these things, right? And you pitch them and then you self mill yourself for like what, like 15, 12, 13. And then you just play a bunch of reanimation spells. And there's like a bunch of mass reanimation spells, by the way. Like, you play as many as you can, and then you try and like mass reanimate your graveyard. Then just being an 8/8 is kind of funny because you can also like randomly kill people with commander damage. Like, being an 8/8 is like no joke in commander. Or like you do something with like maybe you like give it like 1 power through like Skull Clamp or something, or like some other equipment, and then you like Tainted Strike on this thing and like just randomly kill somebody with Infect. So pretty fun. I also know there are other cards in Dimir that maybe do like the self mill plan better. But this one just like speaks to me. Also, probably pretty good in the 99 of Scarab God. So yes, the first building in paper, the highest honor I can bestow upon you. All right. Next up, got Akle Pacle, Thousandth Moon. 1 a red and a white for a legendary creature, human soldier. Whenever you attack with 1 or more non-gnome creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on Akle Pacle, then create X/1/1 colorless gnome artifact. Creature tokens that are tapped and attacking, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Akle Pacle. And it is a 1/2. So this card is kind of underwhelming, unfortunately. If it had green in its color identity, it would be a lot more interesting to me. Or if its ability was based on its power and not on counters, it would be a lot more interesting to me. But right now, this is just kind of it's just in a really bad place. There are cool, like, I guess, like, you can like try and put counters on with some kind of life gain shenanigans, but I don't know. There's just like other commanders like Adling that kind of do the same thing, but just better. So it does have red in its color identity, unlike Adling though. So if you do know a way to like dump like 5 counters on it though for like cheap, like for like 1 or 2 mana though, like let me know, because then like this becomes a lot more interesting. But for now, it is going in the convince me pile until like somebody tells me there's like some like crazy crazy synergy. All right. Next up, got Bartolome del Presidio. I think that's how you pronounce it. A white and a black for a legendary creature, Vampire Knight. sacrifice another creature or artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Bartolome del Presidio. I think that's how you say it. It's a 2/1. This is like, at first I thought this was kind of boring, and then I thought about it, and I thought about how you can make artifact sack deck, and how sacrificing artifacts is actually kind of a big deal. And then, man, it doesn't draw cards though. That's the problem. You need some way to feed this thing. But actually though, it is 2 mana. So you can have Luris as your companion. Okay. This is like a brew later. Yeah, this is a brew later. Just because of the artifact sack. Also, it's probably going to be good in the 99 of aristocrats. Alright, there you go. Next up, Caparocti Sunborn. 2, a red and a white legendary creature human soldier. Whenever Caparocti Sunborn attacks, you may tap 2 untapped artifacts and or creatures you control. If you do, discover 3. So go until you hit something at 3 and then cast it without paying its mana cost. So this is kind of funny because this is like a weird, this is like a, man, if you could just like tutor for whatever it was at 3, this would be amazing. Maybe if you can like stack your deck to like always get something. It's like interesting. Man, this is like a casual build around. Yeah, unless there's like, if somebody can tell me like, oh, maybe this is like a stacks commander. Because there's all those stacks pieces that only work if they're untapped. I don't know. Tell me if there's like something cool you can do with this. Because it like also like gets your stacks pieces out of your deck. Well, okay. There's potential there. I just don't have the time to like mine the potential. But yeah, tell me if you like find anything like cool you can do with like the tapping part specifically, because I think that's where this card is going to be good. All right, so into the convince me pile. Captain Storm Cosmium Raider. For a blue and a red legendary creature, human pirate. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target pirate you control. This is just like draft chaff. Alright, get out of here. Actually, let's not discount this entirely. Whenever an artifact. You are in blue-red, you're in the artifact colors. I think this is more of a 99 card where you like pump something and kill somebody. Yeah, this is more of a 99 card. I'm not even sure if it's a 99 card. I don't know. I don't think there's, unless there's like, I don't know. Tell me if there's a artifact, like if there's like a card that says remove a +1/+1 counter from something, make like a token artifact, then like you just go infinite and kill somebody. So if there's a card like that, let me know. But otherwise, this is like doo-doo. This is like not interesting. Alright, next card. It's Quinth, Firstborn of Gishath. So for a red and a green, a legendary creature dinosaur has haste. When it's Quinth, Firstborn of Gishath enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. When you do, target dinosaur you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. I don't know why this thing has haste. Probably for standard. But this thing is like really good in the 99. This is just like a kill spell with like a creature attached to it. So it's like pretty good. It's like a Ravenous Chupacabra, but it also gets to attack and stuff. So, and it's legendary, and it's a dinosaur. So it has there's a lot of upside. As commander though, I don't know, having like a kill spell in your command zone is like actually kind of good. And it's also cheap too. So if this thing you don't really care if it dies, but you can also like do like funny things in the late game where you have like a ton of mana and like you Kessa Wolf run this thing and like one shot somebody out of nowhere. So oh man, now I kind of I'm gonna brew with this thing. This thing is like actually kind of it's got like some versatility to it. All right. Actually, I'm kind of kidding myself. It's like in the Might Brew later. But it's like high in the Might Brew later. Yeah, you're at the front of Might Brew later. You're on my short list. All right, next one. Kellen Daring Traveler. So for 1 and a white, it's a legendary creature, human fairy scout. Whenever Kellen Daring Traveler attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card with mana value 3 or less, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it into your graveyard. And then it also has Adventure, which is Journey On for a green, which is a sorcery. Create X map tokens where X is 1 plus the number of opponents who control an artifact. So this card is going to regularly get you 2 map tokens, 2 to 3 map tokens. Sometimes it'll get you 4. It won't. I don't think it's going to be uncommon at all to get 4 map tokens off of this. The real question is, can you use those map tokens to do something? So if you're running Jaheira, that's like insane. That's like getting 3 tokens for 1 mana, and having those all tap for green is insane with Jaheira out. So, oh man, that Journey On part is like so interesting. If you can just keep making map tokens, and then maybe you have it just combos. This is just like a combo commander. Second half is also that, the actual creature part is also pretty good. I don't know. There's some way to break Journey On. I just know there is. I see this more as a 99 card though. Man. There's cool stuff to do with this though. I'll be brewing with this later. But yeah, I think this is the first time I've ever seen such an aggressive cost per token on a spell before. There's the red one where you sack an artifact, and I think it's either sack or destroy an artifact, and you make 3 goblin tokens, and that one's that's super aggressively costed. This one you just or you make, with the goblin one you make 3 goblin tokens, and then this one is you make anywhere from 1 to 4, but realistically you're making 2 to 3, and sometimes you high roll and get lucky when people have artifacts and you make 4. So Oh man, and it just gets better the more people at the table there are too. And the tokens are like actually useful. They actually like do something since they let you explore. Yeah, it's just like this is a good card. All right. Next up, Kutzil Melmet Exemplar. One, a green, a white, legendary creature, cat warrior. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. Whenever one or more creatures you control, each with power greater than its base power, deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this is this is like a good package. You want to put counters on things or have something that pumps their power. Yeah. Yeah, this is really good. Uh, I would brew with this, but I already have a Rego deck. So this might go in a Rego deck, but the only reason I'm not brewing with this is because I already have a commander that does something similar. Otherwise, I would be brewing with this. But again, very good commander, just not for me. The Myco Tyrant. One, a black and a green legendary creature, Elder Fungus. Has Trample. The Myco Tyrant's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control that are fungi and or saplings. Beginning of your end step, create X11 black fungus. Creature tokens with this creature can't block, where X is the number of times you descended this turn. You descend each time a permanent card is put into your graveyard from anywhere. This screams combo to me. You just have your like Gravecrawler or whatever, like you like loop with Gravecrawler, where you loop it like however many times you have like black mana. So maybe you loop this like 20 times or something, and then at your end step you get like 20 tokens. And then if you have like Phyrexian Altar, you just like make infinite tokens, right? So it's definitely a combo commander. And then sometimes you'll Voltrum this thing and just like kill somebody, and then maybe send the tokens at somebody else and kill them. Tokens not being able to block though is like really bad. Like not being able to block with those things is so bad. But you can clamp them. This is like a really good. This is a good fungus commander. If you're like gonna play a fungus commander, this is not a bad option. And it just does good Golgari like combo things. If you can't like win the fairway, you just like combo and kill somebody. So this is in my might brew category. I've kind of been spoiled by Marin. Otherwise, it would be in brewing. All right. Nikinzil, Current Conductor. For green and a blue. A legendary creature, Merfolk Scout. Whenever a creature you control explores a land card, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. And whenever a creature you control explores a non-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on Genzil, Current Conductor. This water can guide you anywhere if you know how to ask. Flavor text. It's a 2/3. So this thing is like insane with the other merfolk that explores for each merfolk you have. So like you have these two together and like you just like get like 5 lands on the battlefield or wherever. I don't know. It's like pretty good. And then it can also like Voltron and like try and kill somebody if you like you just like try and explore as much as possible and get to 21 counters and kill somebody. And it's in blue and green, so you can like protect this thing and like reliably Voltron with it. And it's only 2 mana. Yeah, it's like if you're playing an Explorer deck, this is like really good. Uh, Again, there's like because there's like such a glut of like good commanders. This one's just like it's just like uh, I don't know. It goes in. It goes and convince me like tell me please like tell me like something to like it's not even convince me. It's like I'm never brewing with this. Man, that feels harsh though. It's true though. There's too many good Simic commanders, especially uh some of the other commanders that are coming up that I want to actually brew with and build in paper. So I'm sorry, you're a good commander. You're just not for me. Uh, Next up, Saheeli, the Sun's Brilliance, for a blue and a red. If a legendary creature, human artificer, for a blue and a red, tap it, create a token that's a copy of another target creature or artifact you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. It's a 2/2. Oh man, having to wait a turn to do this is like really bad. Like, and then let's consider so you like the sacrifice part is also really bad too. Because otherwise you could like create like a token copy of like Soul Ring or something. And then if it's stuck around it would be amazing. But maybe there's like maybe you like create a token that's a copy of Soul Ring and then you copy that token. That's too much work. This thing is like uh is there like something you can do with this? It's just like it's maybe like copy Hedron Archive and then sack Hedron Archive to draw a card. Oh, it's so bad. Get out of here. Get out of here. There's too many good blue-red commanders for me to spend time on this thing. All right. Maybe good in the 99 though. Man. That sacrifice. Feels bad. Okay. Moving on. Sovereign Okinek How. 2 green white. Legendary creature Cat Noble. Ward 2. Whenever it attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than that creature's base power, put a number of +1/+1 counters on that creature equal to the difference. So like if you have a +1/+1 counter on something, then you get another counter. And then if you have like 2 counters, like you double the counters. And then if you have like 4 counters, you double that. So it's like this is like a weird like combat doubling season. This card is like weird. I like this card just for how weird it is. It's like going into like the 99 of some decks for sure, but oh man, is there like some way where you like there's no way to like take infinite combats in like green or white though. Oh, this thing is like cool though. Tell me if there's like something amazing you can do with this. Like, maybe there's like, what if like, maybe it's like some green pump spell. I don't know. Yeah, it's going in the convince me pile. And then next one is just going in never brewing pile, but we'll take a look at why that is shortly here. So Ukin Benbach, the Great Mistake. 3 a blue and a black. Legendary creature Skeleton Horror. Vigilance Menace. Descend 8 for 4 blue and a black. Return it from your graveyard to the battlefield with Finality counter on it. Activate only if there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. And only as a sorcery. It's a 6/4. So you can't even like 3-tap somebody with this in Commander. It's 5 mana. It's like, it's really bad. Doesn't draw you cards. I guess it has like Vigilance and Menace. This thing is just bad. Just don't play this unless you're like playing like Skeleton Tribal. That's like the only place you play this in. This thing is so bad. Don't play it. Please don't play it. All right. Then we have Veto Fanatic of Akle. So for 2, a white and a black, legendary creature, vampire, demon, flying. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, you gain 2 life. If this is the first time this ability is resolved this turn. If it's the second time, each opponent loses 2 life. If it's the third time, create a 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. So the first 2 abilities are like, they don't matter. Well, they kind of matter, but not really. And then the third ability is like pretty good. But sacking 3 things, even like in a dedicated sacrifice deck, could be really hard. Man. I will say though that if you can do this like every turn, because this doesn't specify your own turn, it's like it becomes like amazing, right? Where you're making the token every turn, you're like draining like every turn, not just your turn, but on your opponent's turns. Then this becomes amazing. So this does not immediately go into never brewing. It goes into convince me. So tell me if there's like some way to like do that without like completely imploding. Because if you can, that's like sacking like 3 permanents every turn. Like, I don't know. There's no way, right? All right. Next up. So Zolia Lava Tongue. So black-red, legendary creature, goblin, warlock, death touch. Beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, each opponent may discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. It deals 3 damage to each opponent who didn't. 2/2. So the death touch on this thing is actually like pretty good, because it means you can use like Thornbite Staff and stuff to like machine gun down the board. This card is like a really bad. This like suffers from the Punisher like problem, right? Where you give your opponent the like best option. And a lot of times your opponents will want to discard a card for their own strategy, or even sacrifice a permanent for their own strategy. Like if you're playing against Marin, they might be okay. They might actually benefit from sacrificing a permanent. So this is not a very powerful commander. However, I will be brewing with this because I think it is a fun Punisher commander, especially where it's not as, I don't think it's as egregious as some of the other Punisher commanders where you can like, I don't know, this like this little goblin dude speaks to me. So I will be brewing with this. I think it would be like a fun, like if you're trying to like play at a lower power table, it's a fun commander to like just have around. And you can just play a bunch of like some of the good Punisher effects, but a bunch of the bad Punisher effects too. Next up, yeah, we have Choice of Damnations. We got all the other ones. All the Punisher effects, but all of them are in black and red. Blue Loyal Raptor. So this one is a partner. It costs 2, a green and a blue. Legendary creature dinosaur. A partner with O'Grady Raptor Trainer. So we'll take a look at that next. For each kind of counter on blue loyal raptor, each other dinosaur you control enters the battlefield with a counter of that kind on it. So this is pretty interesting. If you give it some counter that's like if you give it a haste counter, this is like really good, because then all your dinosaurs just like come in and like smack somebody right away, and they get their combat triggers right away. There's a bunch of other counters too, like you get like a double strike counter on it, like somehow that would be like kind of funny. I don't know how you get a double strike counter on it, but there are double strike counters, so it is possible. Maybe not right now. Maybe we need more cards to come out, but someday in the future, you will be able to get a double strike counter on this. It's a 5/4, by the way. Then we have Owen Grady over here. So he is a 1 red-green legendary creature, human soldier scientist. Partners with the Raptor. Then taps for your choice of a menace, trample, reach, or haste counter on target dinosaur. And activate only as a sorcery. So it's kind of obvious what you do here. You turn 3, play this guy. Turn 4, you play your Raptor. You put your counter on your Raptor, right? And then it's like very simple play pattern. Deck kind of builds itself. It's kind of weird to me that there is no like white in either color identity, since a lot of dinosaurs are in white. There are some blue dinosaurs though that are pretty good. So you definitely have enough access in green and red for cards. So interesting build around it. By the way, this is we're in the Jurassic World collection, so we're out of like the main set. This is like the next set, so I'll do some video separations there for people. It's always nice to see partners. Man, there's just like, so the reason I'm probably not going to be doing anything with these is because the other 2 dinosaurs are like some of the other commanders from the Jurassic Park stuff are like I'm definitely going to be like building, and we'll talk about why. Otherwise, I might brew with that, but there's like a lot of good stuff. Ellie and Alan. So this card is really bad in my opinion, but we'll get into that. Ellie and Alan, Paleontologist. 2, a green, a white, and a blue for a legendary creature, human scientist. Tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Discover X, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. Activate only as a sorcery. So it's a 2/5, by the way. I really don't like this card because it doesn't have haste, so you can't just like do this right away. You have to have like something else give it haste, or have some way to activate, like let you activate it as it comes in. It doesn't fuel itself, so you have to dump cards in your graveyard some other way. It specifies creatures, so you have to be running lots of creatures to dump in. And then maybe you like the payoff, like depending on like what you put in your deck, you can get a different payoff, but like the payoff is like kind of random. So I don't know. It's just a lot for 5 mana. Like you play this and then like it's like this big scary effect, and somebody's just like, they see that you have like a Galta in your graveyard or whatever, and they just like kill spell this thing immediately, and you just like lost a turn to play this thing, and being 5 mana, it's like a huge investment. It's like gonna cost 7 mana next time. Oh, no. No. Next up, this one. So Sultai is eating well this set. Henry Wu, Ingen, Geneticist, Black, Green, Blue, Legendary Creature, Human Scientist. Henry Wu, Ingen, Geneticist, and other human creatures you control have Exploit. Exploit is when a creature with Exploit enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. Then whenever a creature you control exploits a non-human creature, draw a card. If the exploited creature had power 3 or greater, create a treasure token. And it is a 1/4. And by the way, the treasure token does not come in tapped, which is quite relevant. So this just draws cards. It makes mana. It does weird things with an old mechanic. It's like it doesn't cost a lot. It only costs 3 mana. It does something when it comes into play. And it's in Sultai, which means you can run Villainous Wealth, which is like the main reason I like this card. But yeah. Also, why the heck is he like? Why can't we see this guy's face? This is weird. Anyways, I really like this card. It's in the brewing category, and there's like a high chance I just build this in paper because I love Sultai. Okay. We got like a chaos. This is kind of a chaos. It's like a. This is a really weird one. In Malcolm Chaotician, 1, a blue and a red legendary creature human scientist. Whenever a player draws their second card each turn, that player exiles the top card of their library. During each player's turn, that player may cast a spell from among the cards they don't own, exiled with Ian Malcolm Chaotician, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. So this one, we have to really read this closely. So you want to have other people draw cards. So you'll be like running all the like Howling Mine effects you can, I guess. And then the second part is you can cast spells that you don't own. And each player may do it. But it's only during their turn that they may cast the exiled cards. So this becomes... This is like a chaos group hug. This is like... Oh my gosh, this is like cool. You're playing chaos group hug. Oh man. So this will lead to really funny situations where somebody will have like an overwhelming board and they'll exile like their blasphemous act or whatever, and somebody else will use that player's own blasphemous act to wipe them. Or you get into like weird politics situations where there's a really expensive wrath maybe exiled, and you have to politic with people and say, I'll cast the wrath, but only if you don't attack me. Or you might say, I won't cast the wrath, just don't attack me. So, oh man, this card is so this card is so weird. I don't know. I don't play a lot of chaos. This is kind of like in the might brew later category. I'll see how it kind of shakes out. If I can like find a build that's not obnoxious, I'd like to brew that, but I'll kind of wait for things to shake out first. All right. Dominus Rex Alpha. So for one hybrid blue black, green green. So 5 mana, legendary creature, dinosaur mutant. Indominus Rex Alpha enters the battlefield. Discard any number of creature cards that enters with a flying counter on it. If a card discarded this way has flying. Same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Haste, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. When Indominus Rex enters the battlefield, draw a card for each counter on it. And it is base power 6/6. So, first thing I thought about when I saw this card was, what can give it Double Strike? And the answer is nothing. At least not in the colors currently. So, I would love to be proven wrong on that, because then this card becomes amazing. Like, you have like flying Double Strike Haste, you go in, you pump this thing with pretty much anything, and like somebody just dies the turn this comes in. So just from commander damage. Otherwise, this card is like, it's still very interesting. It's like, it's kind of like a weird, man. So the big thing about this is like drawing the cards when it enters. Because it's a ETB trigger, you can respond to it, which means you can put counters on it with the ETB trigger on the stack. So for example, a lot of instants put counters on things. The problem is with a lot of these, they are not very what I call mana efficient for the amount of cards you're getting. There is one that's pretty efficient here. It's Bounty of the Hunt. So you can remove a green card in your hand instead of paying its casting cost. And then it puts the counters on it, and then you remove them at the end of the turn. But it's like kind of okay. So it's like you're paying, you lose 2 cards to draw 3 cards, but you don't keep the counters. There's a few others. The other notable one is Stinging Shot, where you put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature with flying. This doesn't. Well, it enters. Yeah, it enters with the flying counter if you discard a creature with flying to the ability. And there's a lot of flyers, so that's going to be one of the counters you're getting pretty much all the time. So then you can get three cards for 1 mana, but you're making your creature smaller, which is maybe not something you want to do. But it's going to be very good in the long game where you have a lot of mana to sink into it. And you'll be able to do that with Cabal Coffers and just as like a green deck pretty easily. So Ruinous Intrusion is really good because you'll get rid of some like scary artifact. Maybe it's like 4 or 5 mana, or enchantment that's like 5 or 6 mana. And then you get the counters, and then you'll draw a bunch of cards off of this, which is like very good. Or you use some Expel with like Strength of the Tajeru or something like that. There's also a few, I think there's a few artifacts and enchantments that put counters on things when they enter play. So you just stack your triggers so you get the counters first, and then you draw the cards. The other possibility is like flickering this thing and then playing the counters on it in response to the ETB. So there's like some things you can do with this. And then the discard's good because then it like puts stuff in your graveyard to reanimate. So yeah, there's some fun things you can do with this, which is why this is one of the cards I'm building in paper, because it speaks to me. That's also why, another reason why I rated some of the dinosaurs quite a bit lower than I might have otherwise, is because I was going to build that guy. So, yeah. Another awesome Sultai commander. And then our final card here, Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid. So for one hybrid black-green and a red, get a legendary creature, dinosaur mutant, Bloodthirst X. This creature enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it, where X is the damage dealt to your opponents this turn. Menace, Enrage, whenever Indoraptor the perfect hybrid is dealt damage, choose an opponent at random. Indoraptor deals damage equal to its power to that player unless they sacrifice a non-token creature. And it's a 3/1. So this is kind of interesting where if you have like some kind of like pinger out, you ping everyone for 1, and then it'll enter with 3 counters. Or you have some other onboard thing to deal damage. Maybe you just smack somebody with a creature. This thing is also very aggressively costed at 3 mana. And the Menace lets you get in, so like kind of the idea is I guess you're going to be smacking people with this thing and killing people. And then there's also the Enrage part is so good. So when it's dealt damage, you choose an opponent at random, deals damage equal to its power to that player unless they sacrifice a non-token creature. So that's like, if you have like a Pyrohemia, that's like nuts. It's just like, people are just going to die from this. So if there's like some board state where you can't kill somebody with commander damage, you just Pyrohemia and kill everyone anyways that way. And then you can recast this pretty easily because it's 3 mana. There's also tricks with the power where you can like pump it temporarily, so it becomes like a 20/20 or something. Again with like hatred, right? And then you just Pyrohemia and like everybody's dead. So there's this is definitely a very scary Jund commander. It's probably one of the best Jund commanders ever printed. And then that's not even like talking about like greater good and things you can do with that. It's like this thing is like kind of disgusting actually. Again, this is probably one I will be brewing with and most likely be building in paper. All right, that is everything. All 47 of these cards, except for Throne of the Grim Captain. You don't count. Yeah, there was like commander players are eating well this set. It's actually like 3 sets, but they're all kind of the same set, sort of. Anyways, let me know what you think. What do you vehemently disagree with me on?